Welcome to Evoke Greatness. We are officially entering year 3 of this podcast, and I am filled with so much gratitude for each and every one of you who've joined me on this incredible journey of growth and self-discovery. I'm Sonnie, your host and fellow traveler on this path of personal evolution. This podcast is a sanctuary for the curious, the ambitious, and the introspective. It's for those of you who, like me, are captivated by the champion mindset and driven by an insatiable hunger for growth and knowledge. Whether you're just beginning your journey or you're well along your path, you're going to find stories here that resonate with your experiences and aspirations. Over the last 2 years, we've shared countless stories of triumph and challenge, of resilience and transformation. We've laughed, we've reflected, and we've grown together. And as we've evolved, so too has this podcast. Remember, no matter what chapter you're on in your own story, you belong here. This community we've built together is a place of support, inspiration, and shared growth. Where intention goes, energy flows, and the energy you bring to this space elevates us all. So whether you're listening while commuting, working out, or enjoying your morning coffee, perhaps from one of those motivational mugs I'm so fond of, know that you're a part of something special. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your curiosity, your openness, and your commitment to personal growth. As we embark on year 3, I invite you to lean in, to listen deeply, and to let these stories resonate with your soul. I believe that a rising tide raises all ships, and I invite you along in this journey to evoke greatness. Welcome back to another episode of Evoke Greatness. Today is a special episode. Today we are celebrating a huge milestone. It's our 3rd anniversary. I can't believe it. I think back to a time when I was scared that I would actually never start this podcast. I sat there with podcast equipment for 6 months, gathering dust, terrified of all the things, right? The fear of maybe no one would ever listen to this. What would people say? What would people think? What if this was an absolute flop? Well, we are moving into year 3 of so much growth, touched hearts and changed lives. And yes, evoking greatness in ways that I never imagined possible. The conversations, gosh, I look back to episode 1, conversations have gotten so much better over the years simply because of putting in the reps. It's in that space where you have to be willing to suck at something for long enough to get better. That's where the growth happens. That's where the magic happens. When I first sat down behind this microphone 3 years ago, I was filled with fear. I was terrified, but I did it anyway. And all of those fears, they were real. They were palpable. But here's the thing about fear. It often points us towards the very thing we need to do to grow. And grow we did. Today, I am proud, I am humbled, I am amazed to share that Evoke Greatness has reached the top 3% of all podcasts globally. Like, what? People often ask me, what are you doing? How did you do this? I still do everything on my own. I do very little editing. I have amazing guests. We have great conversations. I have to believe that that's the magic recipe because I'm not doing anything super special other than showing up, having guests who really show up and share their stories. And I think that's worthy. I think a lot of people are doing a lot of fancy things in the background and good on them. But man, we're just showing up. And despite being in the top 3% of podcasts globally, I am declaring it here. Most of you have probably heard me say it before. We're going to get to the top 1%. I've also just hit a new milestone for the most downloads ever. Recently been nominated for a Women in Podcasting Award. Like, how freaking cool is that? But stepping back, you know what? These achievements, as wonderful as they are, pale in comparison to the real treasure of this whole journey that I've been on. I've been on with you. And that's the connections we've made and the stories we've had the opportunity to share. Over these last going on 3 years, I have had the privilege of hosting some truly remarkable guests. Shout out to Nate Randall, CEO of Gab Wireless, my amazing guest and friend that came on for episode 39. My brother is changing the world by providing safe wireless for our kids. Not to mention, he's just an absolutely amazing human being. But that episode is still the most listened to episode of all time, which shouldn't be a surprise if you know him. And then taking it all the way back, my very first guest on this podcast was Justin Batt. He was the first person I reached out to and made that ask that I was sure that everyone was going to say no to, except that he said yes. And he shared his story about creating Daddy Saturday to be a more intentional father, because if we're lucky, he brought this stat to everybody's attention. If we're lucky, we get 940 Saturdays with our kids before they leave home. And if that number doesn't have you step back and reconsider how you're spending your Saturdays with your kids when you're not at work, are you being present? Ooh, he really brought it. And he wanted to make sure that he showed up fully for his family and as a man of incredible faith. He and his family have gone on to do even more amazing things with creating Truth South Farm. His daughter has recorded an album. His wife has an amazing bridal show. Like they're doing so many cool things. So do yourself a favor and go check out Justin Batt. Another amazing guest was Claude Silver. This is Gary Vaynerchuk at VaynerMedia. It's his chief heart officer. And her early journey of self-discovery ended up leading her to become a culture-shifting, kindness and compassion sprinkling, certifiable badass who believes that showing up with heart and humanity is the key to unlocking greatness in people. I think her story left us all in awe. But each guest, man, they have brought their own unique light to this space. And it's illuminated paths of possibility for us all. And that is my goal, not just on this podcast, but in life, is to show people what is possible. I think back to Deanne Turner coming on the show. She was a 33-year veteran at Chick-fil-A who was selected as her company's first female officer. Her story of working her way up and helping to create and replicate extraordinary culture still impresses me to this day. Or the episode with Megan Riley that had me, and I'm sure you too, ready to jump out of our seats when she said, if someone cracks a door open for me, then I'm not going to be like, are you sure you want to open that for me? I don't know. No. If someone cracks that door open for you, you kick the door down and you run through it as far as you possibly can with as much of you as you can possibly bring. That quote, hearing her say that, I have that on my website, that video snippet or the audio snippet of that, because she has such fire and passion in her voice. That still gives me goosebumps to this day. It still gives me that extra dose of courage that I didn't know I needed. And the outpouring of messages I received after that one showed me just how deeply these conversations can touch lives. And if there's one resounding message that has emerged from these last 2 years, it's this. Just because something scares you doesn't mean it's bad or that you'll fail. Sometimes leaning into that fear and doing it anyway is exactly what helps us grow and evolve. When I started this podcast, I was filled with fear. But with each episode, each conversation, and each message that I would get from each one of you, that fear began to transform into purpose. I've seen this same transformation in so many of our guests and listeners. You've shared how listening to these stories gave you the courage to show up as the real you, to own your voice, to step into your power, to ask for that big raise or promotion, to finally take action on that crazy big secret dream, even when it was hard. Or how a particular episode inspired you to keep your head up and continue taking care of yourself and your mental health, even when you were feeling beaten down and hopeless. So as we mark this milestone, I am insanely overwhelmed with gratitude for you, the listeners. You're the heartbeat of Evoke Greatness. Your willingness to open your hearts and minds, to invest your time, your energy into these conversations week after week is nothing short of remarkable. Each of you have helped me become better at this. Every time you press play, every time you share an episode with a friend or leave a review, every time you reach out and share a little part of your story, you're not just supporting this podcast. You're actively participating in a community of growth, of courage, and of greatness. So as we step into year 3, I am filled with excitement for what's to come. We have some incredible guests lined up, some powerful topics to explore, and I have no doubt that together, we're going to continue to push the boundaries, to challenge all those fears, and yes, to evoke greatness in ways we have yet to imagine. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for being on this journey with me. Here's to many more years of growth, to the power of facing our fears, and to all the greatness that it's on its way. Cheers to, y'all can't see it if you're listening to the audio, but if you're looking at the video, cheers to 3 years. I've got my big number 3 balloon here to celebrate. And from my heart to yours, thank you. Thank you so much for listening and for being here on this journey with me. I hope you'll stick around. If you liked this episode, it would mean the world for me if you would rate and review the podcast or share it with someone you know may need to hear this message. I love to hear from you all and want you to know that you can leave me a voicemail directly. If you go to my website, evokegreatness.com, and go to the Contact Me tab, you'll just hit the big old orange button and record your message. I love the feedback and comments that I've been getting, so please keep them coming. I'll leave you with the wise words of author Robin Sharma. Greatness comes by doing a few small and smart things each and every day. It comes from taking little steps consistently. It comes from making a few small chips against everything in your professional and personal life that is ordinary, so that a day eventually arrives when all that's left is the extraordinary.